and I'm as, whole of a human and as competent and as capable and as powerful as every other human out there that's successful in the US. That's the way I saw it when I first learned about Silicon Valley. I was like, these guys are not that smarter than me. Like, they have the same nature. They just were born in a different context, had certain opportunities, and pulled through those opportunities harder than me because they have more life experience, of course.
I would say US specifically has this crazy work ethic, little time off and stuff like that. And then I would say another place that we can compare to is most of EU, European Union, where a lot of these countries are living on its old glory. And I think that stuff makes you lazy. And we all know US often makes weary remarks about, okay, it's August, September, like don't expect any Europeans to show up. But yeah, you can look at it as a challenge. Like, my country isn't as rich or whatever as some other country, but you can also look at it differently. Like, at this point in time, it's the first time ever that you can work from a poor village in the mountains. You can work from there for a badass company anywhere in the world and make, I don't know, thousands or hundreds of thousands of bucks, euros or whatever, and have a great life.
Muy buenas, aquí Guillermo Vespucci y hoy estamos con Ongen Voskovic. Acabamos de grabar un episodio para el podcast de Founder Video, lo podrás ver en la carta de aquí cuando esté subido, si es que subo este vídeo antes de que o después de que el podcast se suba. Y vamos a hacer una entrevista en inglés, lo podrás seguir con subtítulos como ya habrás podido deducir por la intro, pero vamos a hablar sobre un poco cómo Ongen ha podido penetrar el mercado estadounidense B2B SaaS con el tema de marca personal para fundadores, Founder Brand, siendo un tío de Serbia que solo tiene high school y un poco con muchos paralelismos con cómo yo he penetrado el mercado estadounidense de B2B SaaS. Entonces vamos a charlar un poco sobre eso, ¿no? So, for this interview, I just want to mainly touch on your come up to the, or not come up, but I don't want to glorify it either, but like just we've done similar things. We've both penetrated the B2B SaaS market in the US as people from, two countries that, I mean, Spain is kind of a little bit more in the Western sphere and developed and whatnot, but Spain is kind of like super behind compared to the US. Serbia is as well, right, as a country. A lot of people in Spain don't even have, and Latin people watching right now, they don't maybe know nothing about Serbia. They just know that I moved there maybe. And today I just want to, let's start with, how do you go from finishing high school, getting in a year of law at uni, then dropping out, and then getting a job, becoming competent, pivoting from, selling at an airline to, then, becoming a growth marketer and a reputable agency with really great logos as case studies and whatnot. How do you pivot? How that journey happens? And is there any critical event that fosters that drive and grit that takes you there?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And by the way, since it's a Spanish-speaking audience, my name actually is the exact same as Ignacio in
Ignacio. Oh,
Ignacio.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, first off, once you publish this, I'm gonna translate it into Serbian and send it to my parents, because they have still questions about me not graduating and stopping at high school. So yeah, I mean, tough questions. Where do I start? Yeah, as you said, definitely not easy to break into US market in this space, B2B SaaS, whatever. As someone who's an outsider, we're basically underdogs in this game.
Yep.
I think you already pointed out to the answer to how, which is you need to be hungry, you need to have some level of ambition, you need to have some level of dissatisfaction with status quo. Like we touched on this while we were driving here, but like at some point I realized if I stayed and if I've worked within the Serbian market, it would take me, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years to own a piece of real estate, and would take me, I don't know, 50 years or forever never.
And it's the same for the Spanish people. That's why I'm bringing you.
Yeah, I know we have similarities. As you said, Serbia is more behind than Spain compared to US. Yeah, definitely better in Spain, but here, there's kind of this wave of people who are catching up to like global market and understanding and doing, succeeding in getting in the global market and all. So yeah, I would say dissatisfaction with status quo, doing some back of the napkin math, like in Serbia, like officially the average pay is like 800 euros. That's probably the median is lower. That's like abysmal when you look at US or most of Europe. And real estate, for example, costs not that much less or even higher sometimes. Like here in Belgrade, in the capital, like square meter is like, at least 2-3k euros. So yeah, you basically do the math and realize, so I'll leave my kids with best case scenario one apartment that they'll have to fight over and split it, and it will probably go to waste and whatever. So when you do the math like that, plus if you have some like ambitions and goals in life, like I think people struggle with having very specific goals. And not that they should be specific, but like I very early on knew that like I want to own a ranch. I want my kids to like be raised in like not prosperity, but like not spoil them and not make them drug addicts like Hollywood does. But like I want them to have stuff and have options in life. Still teach them like to be capable, to be able to do everything they want on their own, but have options that I supply them with. And I want to travel. I want to have a car that can go off-road 4x4. I want to camp a lot. I want to go hunting, and all the stuff that kind of the stuff you emotionally are drawn to, that like are part of your personality, and hobbies you want to do and life you envision. All those things cost a lot. I mean, some less, some more, but generally you'll need financial stability and prosperity to do most of them. So then the math is simple. Like, can I achieve these ambitions and goals by working at a company in Serbia? Most likely not. In 99% cases not. And then this other part is obviously chance and being lucky. I was lucky to, for example, work with an agency whose founder is from US, but he lives here, like similar to you. He lived here actually. He's now in Spain. Fun fact. But has most of his workforce here in Serbia, because he, again, like you realize that we speak English well. We have some talent when it comes to content world.
You guys are smart.
And we actually, obviously, charge less for that, right? Because the cost of living is lower than in most countries in the West. So I was lucky to start working with him, and we had some successes. And suddenly I was working with people from US, talking to them, serving some clients, acquiring some of them, being noticed on LinkedIn or in our community at the time by these people. So I slowly started entering this space, and again that comes another ingredient comes to mind, like have some integrity and confidence. Usually a natural trait, but you can probably work on getting better at being confident. I was always kind of I would never take the approach where I'm like beneath someone because they're from US or whatever. I was always on par with them. That was my kind of natural tendency to have that kind of a stance, and earn some respect and be out there. The first step is just show up, right? So yeah, I mean that's a lot to unpack. This is pretty random, but yeah, there you have a few ingredients I think are important for this.
No, I love that. I fully agree with everything. Like, I mean, you cannot put yourself in a beneath place ever. You gotta choose yourself, and nobody chooses you. You choose yourself, and you choose to be competent, and you choose to go the extra mile, and you choose to be that guy. Literally, you gotta choose it, and you gotta make the decision and stick to it, and eat as much shit as needed to become it, basically, or as much shit as your peers, at least, right? I want to point out something really important. It's and why I bring you, audience. Don't feel like this is not relevant to you because he's Serbian. Spaniards, and most importantly, people in Latin America, are in literally the same position. Good talent that can be recognized as good talent by U.S. companies at a cheap cost. Perfect entry point for you to demonstrate competence and build up your career, just as you did, right? You just got to be competent enough. That's what it is, and then even some kind of like a sprinkle of delusionalism to it, or just being delusional with how confident you need to be when you're not that competent yet, right? And in your ability to become so, not confident as in I'm already competent and you're not, right?
Yeah, that's just being cocky, right?
Exactly. That's fake it till you make it, and you don't need to fake anything. You just need to have the delusional confidence to know that your ability will take you everywhere you want. And once you have that, everything becomes easier. So you started as an agency. We covered all this in the podcast. Chicos, si lo queréis ver, está en la carta. El podcast, porque ahí hay mucho insight también. But I want to understand your POV on, you mentioned, and this segues perfectly into the point that I want to make, or like what I want you to talk about, which is the difference between the West and the East. As a whole, right? And especially when it comes to the cultural and social fabric and mindset stuff, not in the economical landscape. You said, I never put myself in a place as if I'm beneath someone just because they're from the US. I understood that, it's hard. I mean, I don't want to say it that way, but even if I'm Serbian, that doesn't matter, and I'm as whole of a human and as competent and as capable and as powerful as every other human out there that's successful in the US. That's the way I saw it when I first learned about Silicon Valley. I was like, these guys are not that smarter than me. Like they have the same nature. They just were born in a different context, had certain opportunities, and pull through those opportunities harder than me because they have more life experience, of course, right? I was younger when I discovered Silicon Valley. I'm 22 now, but when I discovered it, I was like, okay, yeah, but I don't have the context, I don't have the opportunities, I don't have the capital, I don't have the context, but I'm learning the language. I think I have the intangibles that they have by nature. Why not? Why is that not my place? Why don't I belong? No, I can belong, and I'll earn my place, and I did so. And it's not easy, but if you come from that mindset, I think it becomes way more achievable in your mind, at least. And so when you start this journey, kind of like what is, let's just start with that, right? Like raw, what is your POV on the West right now and the East? What does the East need to learn from the West and vice versa? And how have you seen this manifested in the work ethic culture between those two countries with your experience working in the US and, of course, being Serbian?
Yeah, I think a little side note before we jump into the convo is I think a big chunk of how this conversation, the whole conversation is set up is based on the conversation around identity politics that's hopefully going away, but I don't view myself as I'm a Serbian in that when it comes to business and making things happen in life, this has nothing to do with me. Totally. It puts me in a specific position like it does for anyone.
Again, I didn't mean to put you in that bucket at all.
I know your point of view here, and I agree with. Just want to call this out. I was raised to think in terms of there's a quote from, was it Kennedy? Like, don't ask what your state can do for you, ask what you can do for your state. A little variation of that is what I live by, is like, it's up to me to do whatever it has to be done. It's up to me to achieve things, and I'm not expecting anything to be given to me to be helped with. That's like I think a very healthy way of looking at things. Like when there's a problem, you first look at yourself into solving that, and don't expect anything from the world. You know, you're in charge of your own fate, right? So yeah, specifically Serbia, yeah, it's always been at the crossroads of East and West, and it created some. I mean, we can go into a total historic geek out phase of this conversation, but basically, yeah, we got Christianity from the East, from the East Roman Empire, Orthodox Christianity. In 11th century, there was a schisma there was a split in the in Christianity into, you know, Catholic West and Orthodox East. We were right and still are right at the border. You know, Croatia, our western neighbor, is Catholic. We are Orthodox, and you know, most countries towards east are also Orthodox, and that created a lot of, you know, geopolitical implications, brought a lot of wars to this region. You know, we had a war like just 20-ish years ago, so it's that's very important for the context of Serbia. And so yeah, I think that led to us being influenced by both sides, being at the crossroads, at the border of, you know, the Drina River is basically the border between Catholic and Orthodox Christianity, and that had a lot of implications. One of them was we were kind of exposed to all kinds of different influences from both sides. So, you know, you can see places in Serbia that you can see that we were occupied for almost 5 centuries by the Ottomans, the Turks. You know, a lot of, you know, in Spain, in Portugal, and France, in Italy, you can see tons of castles and stuff that's been preserved for the last like 10 centuries. In Serbia, you don't see too many of those things because they were, you know, destroyed in many wars we had. But yeah, to go back to the main point of your question, you know, the difference between the West and here, I would say countries that are lacking in development always try to make it up with like the attitude, the work ethics. So you'll see people from Ukraine, from Poland, from here, Serbia, places like that. They are trying to catch up with the world, and it's not like a very kind of, you know, it comes natural. It's not something they decide to do one day, but you see a lot of grit, perseverance, amazing work ethics in these regions or nations, and you see them, you know, kind of leading the way in catching up. So yeah, I would say a lot of people from here work really hard, and when they get a chance to work, for example, with US, or, you know, for a US company or somewhere in Europe, you'll see them doing, you know, working really hard and understanding the opportunity they've been given, and then they try to make the most of it. Yeah.
Sorry. Keep going.
So yeah, when you're kind of in a situation when you need to do something to catch up, then, you know, you decide to do that. I would say US specifically has this crazy work ethic, you know, little time off and stuff like that. And then I would say another place that we can compare to is most of EU, European Union, where a lot of these countries are living on its old glory. You know, a lot of them are basically making money through tourism, through, you know, kind of old established industries, automotive, whatever, and I think that stuff makes you lazy. And we all know, you know, US often makes weary remarks about, okay, it's August, September, like don't expect any Europeans to show up now. It's holiday season, and then, you know, I don't know what the exact number is, but like in US people take like 10 days off. In Europe it's like 30, 40, whatever. Yeah. Serbia is somewhere in between. We have sort of a socialist past because we were a part of Yugoslavia that was a socialist country for what, like 50 years. and we have a lot, inherited some of this kind of laziness that comes with,
Being Southern European,
yeah,
somewhat.
but I would say more socialism because
I know,
because that was the way things worked. You get a degree, you get a job, the state gives you an apartment, so everything is much less complex, easier. The path was clear. There was no hustle required to make it. It was kind of a paved road. So we have some of that mentality. Unfortunately, a lot of young people here are the opposite of what we talk about. They expect the state to give them a job. They expect their parents to leave them with an apartment or two. But then there's this whole different type of people who are realizing that like you don't find success, meaning and whatever in life that way. You do by going out there, venturing on your own, and doing the hard things.
Yep, totally. A lot to unpack there.
Oh yeah.
One thing I want to say in the first place before I ask you a question that's going to be most key, I think, is that the West, it's not only living off of its glory, it tried to stretch. We were talking in the podcast about 0 to 1 from Peter Thiel and the difference between building a 0 to 1 business, which is aiming to be a monopoly like big tech, which is the biggest example right now. Amazon with AWS has a monopoly. Google with search engine has a monopoly. Microsoft with computers, you could argue, has a monopoly shared with Apple.
For sure.
Whatever. The thing is, they tried to stretch the moat too hard. The West still trying to live off of a monopoly that's endured for centuries, but it's over. It's over, and they're losing it because they got too comfortable with it. In the same way that Google would have lost it if they got comfortable and didn't build Google Cloud and all the products that are adjacent to the company that are now, first sustaining the thesis that they're not a monopoly, and second, the search engine now with AI, we've seen the biggest. We've seen the biggest impact or the biggest threat that Google could have had for their monopoly as a search engine. And they're adapting and they're innovating to not let that destroy their moat. The West hasn't done so. It let China and BRICS and all these other countries that are becoming more and more competent increasingly, even countries like Nigeria, countries like Pakistan right now, countries like even Uzbekistan right now, it's really hard for investments regarding energy, natural resources and whatnot. These countries are on the come up and will be the ruling ones in the 21st century. It's hard to say if nations will be at all the rulers of the 21st century. But if there are winning nations in the 21st century, it's not going to be the Western ones. Why? Because they are embodying the essence that made the West so rich and so abundant, right? Either way, to not get derailed, Serbians are already getting hired by U.S. companies, like the best high growth U.S. companies. Before we hired here, we talked over with 5 people from Pavilion, and we found VPs of HR, VPs of sales, etc., that have built teams of hundreds of people off of Serbian talent for B2B SaaS companies in the U.S. And so Serbians are already getting hired. Ukrainians are already getting hired. Polish people are getting hired, Hungarians, like all these, Eastern, again, not Eastern European, all of them, it's Balkan and Eastern European, but in Central Europe, they're already getting hired by US companies. What do Latin people and Spanish speaking people from, not lower class, but, less favorable countries need to learn from Serbians, Polish, Hungarian, most importantly Serbians because you're Serbian, that they haven't learned yet in order to start getting hired, other than English, of course, because that's also a big problem in the Spanish-speaking world. We think that with Spanish we go far, and then look at the Spanish startup landscape and you can laugh, right? But what are they missing? To me, I think it's social awareness and a Western eye for design and corporate etiquette. But I want to know your take because you've probably seen it in the trenches as well. I've seen it through working and leveling myself up, being a Spaniard who didn't know stuff. I didn't know shit about work ethic or anything. Building my agency in the US was kind of my best, my first serious work experience. And I learned a lot about it because my partner came from Boeing. As an FP&A, as a financial analyst, budgets of millions and handling teams and management layers and that type of stuff. he passed that on to me, and I didn't need to go through corporate to learn it, which is amazing. But I think that's what's missing, because that's what we value the most when hiring from here, and that's what the companies that we talk to value the most, the culture fit and whatnot. I want to get your take, and then most importantly, I want to know how you developed in that process, and the things you learned, and the things you know are now key and pillars for you to be taken that seriously in the US B2B SaaS market.
To your question about the Spanish-speaking part of the world, so I actually have a client who helps US companies hire from LATAM, and so I do have a lot of context besides the general knowledge I have on that. Like I would say US companies are very aware of the Spanish speaking side of the world as a great place to hire from. I would say it's less the case with Serbia. First of all, like Spanish speaking world is like, I don't know, 500, 700 million, a billion, whatever.
Somewhere around that, yeah.
And Serbia is like 7 million people, or, you know, this region is maybe 20 million people, Balkans or whatever. So yeah, it's not even a comparison. I would say you have the awareness of these companies, like there is demand. US companies and probably others have a good sense of, you know, it makes sense to hire from Latin America or Spain, whatever. So that's going very well for you. The other thing is, yeah, I mean, English is a must, obviously. When you are working with, you know, a space that's far from your home and your culture, you basically gotta, even if you stay and work remotely, you gotta kind of assimilate a bit.
Yep.
Like, I'm having fewer conversations with my friends about the things that are going on here. I'm having more conversations about the stuff that's going on in US or in my market or whatever. Like, you gotta sacrifice some of your local stuff to go global or US based or whatever. Like, you gotta be culturally up to date in other ways. Yeah, you gotta understand the space. Like with anything, you gotta know the space and be able to read the room. I would say there's communication stuff, like same as the previous thing I said. Like, you gotta be able to basically learn the language, and by language I mean, you know, all kinds of communication, not just speaking, with the US counterparts. But yeah, it's you know, you can look at it as a challenge. Like, my country isn't as rich or whatever as some other country, but you can also look at it differently. Like, I can, at this point in time, it's the first time ever that you can work from like a poor village in the mountains, which is where I plan to move. Not too far from now. You can work from there for a badass company anywhere in the world and make, I don't know, thousands or hundreds of thousands of bucks, euros, or whatever, and have a great life. And that wasn't possible for most of our history up until recently. So yeah, figure out, you know, just start figuring out ways how to get there if that's what you want. It can be a good life, and yeah, it's worth pursuing.
And okay, give me more insight into what you you know, you mentioned kind of like that be able to read room, of course, and social awareness, the language. Can you scenify or just you know, picture examples of scenarios in which having that kind of insider language and or attitude, just in general, being ingrained in their culture and whatnot, has been really beneficial to you? Or like, literally, you know, the most binary situation that you can picture, the better, in terms of, like, you know, something that could have lost you your job if you didn't perform right, but you did, and that was a key learning on, you know, a manifestation of having that intangible that gets you so far in the US market.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of specific things, but yeah, I mean, generally, I would say folks from US, I would say, talk a lot. They are generally more like positive beings and saying more nice things, even when they don't mean it. So yeah, I would say it's a more of a conversational culture than others. I don't know. Definitely, when you're on Slack, you'll definitely see more Americans doing the talking. You gotta be, politically correct if you're working with US. You shouldn't venture into politics and stuff.
Not at all.
Because with them it's binary. If you say something, half of them will strongly agree with you, another half will strongly disagree with you. Republican, Democrats, whatever. So I would say, stay out of that and be the
competent
center
guy. Be the competent guy. I think that's the best advice.
Don't worry about that. I mean, I don't just work with US. I work with UK, with some companies in Singapore. But yeah, US is probably the biggest one.
It's Anglosphere after all.
For sure. And I'm not sure I can give someone a playbook for that. Just be apply common sense. Try to be at the level of communication and everything else of this other market, and venture inside of it and figure out what things look like, how stuff works, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this interview. Para cerrar un poco, comentaros que, a ver, esto no es tan difícil como puede parecer el penetrar el mercado estadounidense, y por eso traigo a Ongen, precisamente porque creo que es un gran ejemplo, igual que creo que lo soy yo, lo estoy empezando a ser, sobre cómo entrar en el mercado estadounidense desde cero, siendo un outsider del mismo, cómo convertirte en un insider del mismo, y pronto haré más vídeos sobre esto y dando más detalles sobre el playbook que yo apliqué y un poco todo lo que he aprendido con escenarios y situaciones de ejemplo en las cuales pues este intangible se ve materializado y se ve sobre todo muy se ve el impacto que genera el tenerlo. Entonces, bueno, pronto más contenido sobre esto. Espero que os haya gustado. Links en la descripción para apuntarse a la comunidad privada y demás. Y nada, si tienes alguna duda para Ongen y quieres que se la pregunte, ponla en los comentarios. Y bueno, tenemos buena relación, así que se lo preguntaré. Again, thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, man. Take care.